On this episode of another Zelda podcast, David and Kate talk about all the sidekicks that help Link along the way.
Hello and welcome to another Zelda podcast. I am David Geisler, your co-host for tonight, along here with my co-host Kate May. Kate, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for asking. I'm so pleased you asked.
Oh, well, I ask every time just to be polite.
It's true. There is a solid 30 seconds there. That's pretty much the same every time I come in. You get a little rhythm, but I'm fine with it.
What if one of us is bad? Are we going to say we're bad?
Hey, how you doing? Well, I've done other.
Let's talk about all the bad things in my life right now.
Oh, my day.
On the podcast.
Yeah, sometimes it goes that way.
We're always going to be good. Spoiler alert. We're always going to be good. Or great. Or fine.
I'm adequate.
Could be better.
I'm pretty all right.
I'm fair.
Kate, today we are talking about sidekicks.
Sidekicks, because you got to have one in every game.
There's this song thing coming back from
Yeah,
the last episode.
I know.
It's
I do that a lot. I think every game, as far as I know, has a sidekick of some kind.
Oh, interesting. I had a few games that I had a hard time really kind of figuring it out, but there are some that I think count. So this will be interesting to go through.
Yeah. I mean, there are plenty to choose from in general. We're not going to necessarily do like a favorites list or anything like that. We're just going to kind of talk about all of the
I think
ones
it would
we
be
can think
fun if we go down through release order because it kind of shows the evolution of the sidekick, in my opinion.
Sure.
In culture, not in like narrative, but the way a sidekick. So to me, a sidekick, we're going to do a little listener feedback in a second here, but to me, a sidekick for this episode meant the voice of the director or the game or the host, the character that hosts you through the experience, either essentially, what's the word? Diegetically or non-diegetically. So like either of the world, like Eslo saying, hey, we should go check that out.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe like something like an owl character that's more like push Z to do blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying?
Do you not want me to not tell you this again or no?
Yeah, right, exactly. Yes, question mark?
Okay, well, I maybe have a mostly the same definition, but maybe one or two that might not fit.
Well,
into
that'll
that
be
category.
interesting. Maybe that's why you found a few more than me. For me, my strict rule was mechanically, is it part of the game design? Is this side character, does it inform the game design and stuff like that?
I got you.
Certainly, the OG sidekick is Navi in Ocarina, and we'll get to her when we get to her.
Mm-hmm.
But that's like the example. Other
Gotcha.
games have expressed this too. Actually, many games now start to do this, where there's a sidekick character telling you what to. It's a way for the game. The Last of Us is exactly that.
Sure.
Just it's like Uber Navi is the girl that comes along with you, though I can't remember her name.
Right, Uber Navi apparently.
I think it's Uber Navi.
I think so. I think that's what that means. Mm-hmm.
Cool. So actually, let me do a little bit of feedback first. Then we had a cool tweet here that came in a while back, halfway through January. And we were talking on Zelda on Twitter a little bit about, it was still kind of ripple effects of the Ganon episode, which was our season 1 finale.
Mm-hmm.
And our account and many other accounts were kind of talking about how Ganon could be re-expressed in a Breath of the Wild sequel, because you and I both imagined that it would be fun to switch it up a little bit. And whereas Ganon was essentially expressed as a force of nature in Breath of the Wild, there really isn't any sentient being, in my opinion, that's really making choices. It's like a force of nature. It's a spirit.
Yeah.
We even went so far as to have fun in imagining that was like Demise peeking through the dimension a little bit and at least being able to summon these odd incarnations of Ganon.
Yeah.
The different, Calamity, of course, but then, even the word calamity is more of a natural disaster type of expression.
Concept or,
yes. Yeah, I like that.
Not emotion, but yeah, it's definitely more vague and ethereal than a being, a person.
We thought, wouldn't it be fun, even though we think there's plenty of different ways that the sequel to Breath of the Wild could work, but wouldn't it be fun if Ganon really was not Ganon, but Ganondorf in a Breath of the Wild sequel?
Yeah.
Maybe an actual normal 7.5-foot Hylian or whatever he is. I guess he's technically Gerudo. walking around.
Yeah.
I don't know what that would mean. I don't know if, the natural assumption is, oh, maybe he's stalking Link or something, but I don't think it has to be that. He could naturally walk around the land and corrupt towns and stuff like that. That could be kind of neat.
Or he could be disguised.
He could be disguised, and perhaps that corruption is created by artificial intelligence, not like a script, not like, oh, this is the part where Kakariko Village gets destroyed.
Yeah.
Perhaps this character, based on the things you do, inversely travels around, and that'd just be a kind of a neat thing. So we were exploring, wouldn't it be cool if it was less of a force of nature and actually brought it all the way back down into a person again?
Yeah.
So Lucario Ocarina said here, another Zelda pod, I'd love to see a more humanized take on Ganon if he's to make a return. Nothing wrong with a seemingly omnipotent Ganon as we see in Breath of the Wild in the form of the Calamity, but I'm really wishing for something more along the lines of Wind Waker's Ganondorf to add interest.
Yeah.
I concur. I think
Absolutely.
that'd be fun.
I mean, there's so many places they could go. Who knows when they're going to finally do that, but...
What? You mean like the sequel actually coming out?
Yeah.
Well, they're working on it right now.
Yeah? Have you heard
Zeldas
things?
typically come out once every 5 years, loosely.
Ugh.
But once in a while, if it's a direct sequel like Majora's Mask where they use the same engine,
Mm-hmm.
it can come out just 1 or 2 years later. And IG Enuma has said that the sequel to Breath of the Wild will use the same engine, and they're already working on it.
I did hear that much. I
Mm-hmm.
just haven't heard any kind of mentionings of a time.
Oh, yeah. I don't
Timeline.
think we're going to hear or see trailers for another year or two, honestly. You know
Sure.
what I mean? Probably we're going to get some HD remake first, and we're probably going to get a handheld version or a top-down version next. Yes, that's kind of how this works. There's usually a
But-
re-release.
But Switch is handheld.
Well, that's why I corrected myself. I said handheld, and then I immediately said top-down because I was like, ooh, it's not really. It's Breath of the Wild is handheld by that definition at this point.
Interesting.
So anyway, let's see. One other thing here. There was a thing that I wanted to read about. I think this might have been. Oh no, this is about the Great Fairies. We were talking about Great Fairies in one of our previous episodes, and it was a little bit about sidekicks. So I felt that this comment applied, though
Okay.
it was actually many months ago. This person was doing a direct message to us on Facebook. And Cody Vanderfeltz said, "Hi guys, I just started your podcast. Been listening to it all day and plan on keep listening. I get drawn into your conversations and it makes work go by a lot faster. Keep up the awesome work. And I know it could be a bit odd, but some of your early podcasts you talked about the Great Fairies, and you said you didn't know if Twilight had any. I don't exactly recall Great Fairies in Twilight, but he goes on to say if Twilight had any, and it does. They're in the desert area where the Hylian Bridge piece is after you warp it back to its new area. That opens up under where it was leading to what I think was called the 100-floor dungeon. And the fairies act like little healing check marks. And yes, I too love Twilight Princess far more than it's my favorite game. P.S. You guys talked about the sidekicks link. Have you had and figured you might get a kick out of this too? I don't think I fully understood that final sentence, but anyway.
Gotcha.
I think that's me reading it incorrectly. I apologize. Yeah, so Great Fairies as health checkpoints down there in Twilight Princess. That makes sense.
That makes sense why I haven't come upon them because
I don't think I
went down there.
I don't think I did either.
I didn't think
now
to
I really
go back.
want to.
I know.
100-floor dungeon.
Yeah, I get a little bored of those.
Essentially gauntlets.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes they're fun. Sometimes I'll go for it. But sometimes I'm just like, meh, it's not really worth
I agree.
going through the whole
I agree.
thing. Like maybe if it were like 50 instead of 100 or, like a little.
Occasionally, the
less.
act of doing it just to do it is not enough. If there's a narrative reason or something like that, or I understand the
Sure.
context as to why I'm doing it, that's cool.
I mean, Skyward basically requires you to do it to get the shield that you
Yes,
really need.
Yeah, totally.
But the other games, it's not a requirement by any means.
So with these sidekicks,
Yeah.
Kate, I was thinking, maybe I said this already in this episode. I'm thinking, what if we go release order? Did I say that already? I feel like I did.
Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah.
We could do that.
So I think for me, the first game that I can think of that genuinely has a sidekick character / narrator / host is Link's Awakening. Do you have anything before that? For example, A Link to the Past or any of the 2 original Zeldas?
No.
For me, Link's Awakening has the owl that swoops down and generally sometimes tells you a thing or two. I think it's a stretch, but I think that's the closest that game gets to having a sidekick character.
So, well, in that vein, what about it's a Hasrilla? How do you say that crazy name from?
Oh, the phone call guy?
No, actually, that might be that same name. But in Link to the Past, that's like the little tiles that you're reading, and it's the message from
Yeah, you're right. You're right.
Not really
There's
a
a mechanic.
sidekick per
It's
se.
kind of functioning in that way, though.
It's saying like, oh, you need to do this, or the best way to do this is this way.
Yeah, and I actually think that so maybe the owl in Link's Awakening functions a little bit to set you up, a bit like the old man in Breath of the Wild. But once you're in the game, it's Old Man Ularia, or however you say his name.
Oh, yeah,
with the phone
With
calls.
the phones, yeah.
He's the device. He's the Navi that says when you first get back into the game, and Navi says we should go check out Death Mountain.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you can call Ularia and he'll tell you what to do. And I thought that was kind of a clever mechanic by making it phone calls. I wouldn't want it in any other Zelda game except Link's Awakening.
Sure.
Because phones, it's in my opinion, are a little bit outside of the Zelda universe.
Yes, agreed.
But it allows Eularia to physically exist in one spot, but kind of warp around the map. You call him. So as
Yeah.
long as there's a phone booth, you can talk to him instead of like calling up Navi or something.
So, okay, again in that vein, would you consider like the fortune tellers in
Yeah.
Link to the Past that same
You know
kind
what?
of thing?
I think technically, yeah.
So are they a sidekick? Not really.
I think mechanically, I think all of these characters that we're talking about right now existed before the concept of a sidekick character, and they
Yeah.
were just kind of fulfilling that function.
They're like prototypes.
Yeah, they're pre-sidekicks. I agree. So the owl is kind of an honorable mention, I think.
Okay, I could see that.
For me, we go to Ocarina of Time. How about you?
Yeah. I'm just going through my notes here, but yep, that would be the next point.
Navi, the quintessential sidekick character.
Hey,
She's
listen!
yeah. She helps you along. She tells you what to do. She alerts you to things around you. She flies to things when you are focused in on them.
She's one of the few characters who uses voice acting in English through the
Oh.
whole set of games.
My
So I think
goodness.
that makes her really unique as well. I remember being like, oh, this one's special because you can understand what she's saying. Like
Yeah.
I was not expecting voice acting in Ocarina of Time. And then there are obviously characters who make random noises and go, whoa, woo.
That's right.
But they don't talk. And obviously she doesn't talk very much, but she is saying words in English that you can understand
Yeah.
that pertain to the situation.
Like from a file format or saving a file, her saying "hey" or her saying "listen" isn't any different than another character going "oh." It's like they're just loading up a sound file.
Right.
But it is cool that the designers decided to have her words be English words.
In English, yeah. And
Well, wait. Do you think in Japan they're not English words?
I guess I
I'm
would
a little-
assume they would
I'm
not be.
Being a bit naive about this, to be honest,
Yeah, I don't
or ignorant, I suppose, not naive.
I don't know. I think it's also interesting that she changes what she says based on the situation. So whereas you come across characters and it's still pulling up a sound cue that's similar but they make the same noise every time, but she might say listen or watch out or depending on what you're looking at and what you're targeting.
Totally.
So my text message tone, which my phone is silent when we record these episodes, but if someone did text me and it went off, it would go hello.
Oh, it's great. I love it.
Which I used to have on my old phones as well, and every now and then I'd be like, okay, that's enough. But
Yeah, you have to kind of use it sparingly sometimes.
well, luckily I'm not very popular, so I don't get very many texts.
I had you as the chest opening sound for a while, for about a yeyear.
Ah.
And it was cool, but when we'd get in the middle of a conversation, we'd have a little bit of a back and forth, and it was like, ga, 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 ga. Ga, 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 ga.
Okay.
I was like, oh, I might have to take this off.
And I have a couple friends that will text me, like they don't text in paragraphs, they text in multiple texts.
Yeah,
so it'll be
yeah.
like, hello.
Of course. Stream of consciousness texting or whatever.
Yep.
It's like, and then this thing, and then this thing, and then this thing.
Be a little much, but it's also a nice little nod back to that game.
Yeah, sure. So in this way, Navi acts as a help menu in many ways. She's a database. She is she hosts you, and what I mean by hosting you is that she drives you through the narrative.
Yep. Like you said, she does provide helpful hints in terms of if you totally forget what you're supposed to do. She's like, oh yeah, let's go here. It can get a little annoying when you're like already going there and she's like, let's go here. It's like, I know. Leave me alone.
But I think there are some legitimate points in Ocarina where referencing her does help. For example, when you first go to Death Mountain as a kid and you actually have to go all the way back to Saria in the forest, that is not obvious.
Yeah, and she's like, let's check in with Saria.
Something
What
like,
would
I
she
wonder
think?
what Saria's up to.
Yeah.
Oh, what would she think? That's what she says. You're absolutely right. And then you have to still kind of put together, maybe I should go to Saria.
Right. So definitely important in certain parts of that game for sure. I did read on the Wikipedia page for Navi that Miyamoto said that Navi's jealous of Zelda
Ooh, well, that's a little bit of that Peter Pan inspiration. Which,
Yep, a
yeah.
little
Tinkerbell.
Tinkerbell action, being jealous of Wendy for sure. So I thought that was an interesting. I mean, being that it came from him specifically, I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay.
Miyamoto has stated many times that the original inspiration for much of Zelda aesthetically, or tonally, when they were still coming up with the concept, was inspired by the Peter Pan story.
Yep. So it makes total sense.
Now, the fairy was Navi, or having fairies was a game design issue first. They wanted a way to have an icon or a cursor, more importantly, in the game to point at things and to help people find things. Without, later games, it literally became arrows pointing down at characters. Now that I think about it, literally became icons.
Yeah.
But at least in Ocarina, it's a character. And so then they had to kind of reverse engineer the narrative or the lore of these fairies. And that's when later on the whole idea of every Kokiri having a fairy and then Link gets a fairy. It wasn't story first, it was mechanics first when they were bringing up Navi.
Yeah, I read that it was easier for them to have the little fairy floating around instead of the character itself. It was easier to do just the graphic of the fairy. So when you're far away, you can only see the fairy. And as you get closer, the character comes into view because it was just...
For NPCs.
Yeah.
You're right, because an NPC or any character, that might be a couple hundred polygons. And the fairy is, I think, 3. It's a sprite. It's not even exactly polygons. It's a sprite of the glowing circle, and then it's 2 wing polygons that just flap. So they're only loading 2 sprites for a fairy, whereas a character, they have to load textures and many other things.
Yep.
So it's that draw distance problem that kind of plagued Skyward Sword, as I mentioned a couple episodes back.
Yeah.
That was one way of doing it.
I always really liked that first cutscene with Navi too, and
it
how
was
she
great.
flies into the fence, shakes her head.
Yeah, and that was so cool. Yeah, right. Yeah, that goes gonk back and forth, and then she flies through the fence.
Yeah,
which is really, really important because the Nintendo 64 was the first system that was really good at. I might get this wrong, but I think it was called tri-map interpolation. And what that did was it blended pixels together in textures, and it allowed for pixels to be transparent, like a PNG file. So this was most famously expressed in the grids and the grates in Super Mario 64 when he would climb on them and hang around. You did not have to have its own polygon for each bar. You could have a single polygon and have the texture be the bar with see-through polygons.
Yeah.
So they did the same thing for the fences in Zelda, but then they just put 2 polygons off of each other a little bit so it looked like a little bit thicker fence. So when Navi flies through that hole, she actually is flying through a polygon. It's just that the pixels aren't visible. I always thought that was kind of cool.
Very cool.
They were like, we've got see-through pixels. Let's shove the camera right through. Let's just go for it. We're going to go full David Lynch in Panic Room on this. We're just going to shove that camera through everything.
Yeah, it's like, I don't know. It's like watching a Disney movie.
Or David Fincher, I'm sorry.
Yeah, watching a Disney movie do like these weird effects back in like the 30s and 40s that you wouldn't even think would be possible.
Like the parallax scrolling and stuff that they would do?
Yeah.
Bambi was the first one to really use it. They used 4 layers of panels, and that was...
Yeah, that camera is so cool. Multiplane
You've seen
camera.
it, right? The multiplane, yeah. It's like 12 feet tall, 20 feet tall.
Yeah, something. And so just like in Ocarina of Time, you're like, woo, like I was not expecting that.
Yes.
It was so cinematic and so unlike something you would expect it to do.
I'm now realizing that's a very similar stepping point, whereas in like something like Bambi, if the camera's pushing in, they'd get the camera to a point where that first foreground element is no longer viewed by the camera, and in animation, they'd then remove the glass pane and then keep moving the camera in. With a video game, it's the exact same achievement of technology, but they just push the camera right through the polygon and it doesn't matter. Anyways.
Cool.
So yeah, but also
We're nerds.
Also Navi's cool.
Yeah. So unless you have other stuff to talk about with Navi, I want to go to a different sidekick within that game.
You're talking about, who are you thinking about? The owl?
Epona. I consider Epona a sidekick.
Okay. I'll go with the honest.
I know you might.
I think it's not a mechanic sidekick, but let's do it. I like this.
So this is the one where I was like, might not apply to the rules that you applied. However, I think she's like one of the original sidekicks because she's a partner. You know, she's not telling you what to do or anything, but you travel with her throughout the game. She is useful to you. She's like a friend after a certain point in time. You win her over. You know, she's initially scared of you, and then you have to win her over with the song.
I'm into this.
So you have to work to have access to her, and then you travel on together. And that's in obviously more than one game you travel with Epona. So this is not not specific to Ocarina. I mean, I'm counting Epona for Twilight Princess as well, certainly.
Yeah.
She's a very big part of that game.
Right off the bat.
Yeah. And I think, I mean, I know Midna is like your main sidekick in that game, and we'll get to her eventually, but I think Epona is your secondary sidekick in Twilight Princess, to be sure. Like,
I'd go with this. I like this.
You need her to, in that game specifically, to beat certain like mini bosses, I guess I would say, or enemies, and to travel through some of the story parts of that game.
I just realized something. I have to adjust my notes here. And when we get to it, pardon me real quick. Live typing on air here. I apologize.
Clickety clack.
I just don't want to forget this when we get to another game. Yeah, okay, I'll go with it. And I really like this because I think it applies in another game where I just typed a note, so we'll get to it.
We'll see if I know what you're thinking about.
I like this seed that's planted here with the Epona thing.
Yeah.
I do agree that narratively you could say 100% a sidekick. Structurally, it might technically, she might be like a mount, you know, where it's an upgrade to your character that
item
that changes or increases your travel. She's almost a vehicle, you know, technically, if you have to look at it that way. But I like this idea. The story feels stronger and better, and you feel less alone when Epona's around.
She's your partner.
I like it.
And I think Twilight Princess is the main one because she's integral to Twilight Princess.
To the story, for sure.
You need her.
Yeah.
So,
because you're doing sword fighting, you're doing horse chases.
Yep. So I think she's a sidekick in that way, to be sure, because if you didn't have her, you couldn't do what you need to do.
Yeah, I like it.
That's
I like
my reasoning.
I'm cool with that. Not that if I wasn't, that's cool too. But you've convinced me. I like it.
And I guess fun fact, you might have said this already because my fun facts always come from what you said in previous episodes.
I don't know where I learned this, but
it was you. I guess she was. The horse was originally developed for Super Mario 64.
I did not know that.
Did we talk about that already?
No. Tell me.
That's what I read, is that they were trying to get a horse mechanic into Super Mario 64, and then they were like, yeah, this would actually work a lot better in Ocarina of Time.
So yeah, you know, Ocarina or Super Mario 64 famously didn't have the Yoshi mount.
Right.
And maybe that was an extension of that. I know they were having a hard time. They couldn't get Yoshi to work until Super Mario Galaxy 2, actually. And a lot of that was because of, Miyamoto had said in interviews, it was really aiming with Yoshi's tongue in a 2D environment is mechanically, not program-wise, but as someone to play, easier to do than in 3D. Oh, no, Yoshi did show up in Mario Sunshine, and his tongue was not the greatest. Yoshi's tongue was much better.
Weirdest sentence maybe ever said on this podcast. His tongue was not the greatest.
But, you know, I just realized one other thing, too. It's kind of beautiful how back in our like episode 14 or something in season 1, it was the Hyrule Fantasy episode. I talked about how Super Mario Brothers and The Legend of Zelda were basically developed in parallel at the same time because of new technology. It's so cool that 20 years later or whatever it was, I think it was roughly 20 years later, Super Mario 64 and Zelda 64 were also had the same exact experience.
I think, and when I was thinking about that, I was just thinking about how strong a system I think the Nintendo 64 really is, like in terms of game quality.
I agree.
You have those two. You have Banjo-Kazooie, which is one of my favorite games, honestly. You have so many really good games for Nintendo 64. I was like having a nostalgia attack when reading about Epona and how that came about and everything. I was like, oh God, it's such a good system.
I agree. If the original PlayStation were a shotgun blast of games, meaning many games, I feel like the Nintendo 64, and a little bit to its detriment, but in my opinion not so, was more like a sniper rifle. It was there was a line of really good games, but there wasn't much off of that line or that thread. PlayStation had a million games, certainly PlayStation 2, but like PlayStation had a million games, and the quality varied, and you didn't know always what you were going to get. But I think that when it comes to design and development on certain games for the Nintendo 64, it has a strong but tight library that's very impressive.
A catalog that so many people my age for sure love to continue playing, like that and GoldenEye and Mario Kart, like so many classics. Sorry, I agree. That's probably the system I play most often other than my Switch.
That might actually also be true for me, though I do dive back into Super Nintendo a lot these days just because of that Retron 5 that I have. It's a little easier to just throw that cartridge in and play. But, okay, so
Anyway,
let's reel it all
super
in.
tangent.
Epona, sidekick character.
Yep.
So actually, the next game, of course, is Majora's Mask in release, and it has a direct sidekick narrative. There's a new sidekick in Majora's Mask. I pronounce this character's name as Tael, Tael, Tael. And Link, at the end of Ocarina of Time, for a reason that is not expressed in Ocarina, Navi leaves Link at the end. Some posit that it's because Link has become a man. He doesn't need the fairy anymore. Navi goes off. But when Majora's Mask picks up, Child Link, we now know from a couple episodes ago, has already warned Hyrule of Ganon, or Ganondorf. They've already sent him to the Twilight Realm. Unbeknownst to us at the time of playing Majora's Mask, but this is the kind of the retroactive storyline that has happened.
Right.
Link is off looking for Navi. He misses her and he's trying to find her. He doesn't have a fairy in the beginning of Majora's Mask.
Yeah.
And pretty early in the game, he meets two fairies, Tael and Tael's sister, and I actually don't remember her name.
Tattletale.
Tattletale. My goodness. There it is. Well, Tael is an interesting little fairy. Basically, Tattle gets kidnapped, we'll say. The girl fairy, the sister fairy, who looks a lot like Navi.
I thought it was the other way around.
Oh, really?
Isn't it Tattle that?
Well, honestly, I'm
works
pulling
with
this
more?
up from memory of playing the game, and I'm suspecting that because you haven't played the game, you probably looked this up online. So I think your knowledge might be more accurate. I might be reversing this. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Tattle that's the main one, and then Tael is the brother that's kidnapped. And then Tattle meets up with Tael at the end, and she decides to help Link instead of
Tattle. Well, not at the end, right in the
Not
beginning.
instant.
So right in the beginning, because basically, let's talk about it this way: from a mechanics point of view, Majora's Mask needs a fairy because that's how
Right.
that engine works, you know. And so they didn't want it to be Navi again because Navi left, so they turned it into Tattle. I think you're right. Tattle's kind of like a yellowish fairy. She looks a bit like Navi. Navi was maybe white blue, and Tattle is kind of white yellow. Tael is dark energy purple. Which is kind of cool. I did reverse it. I thought I remembered. Maybe I just assumed because Majora's Mask is a bit darker that it was the dark fairy.
Sure.
And also, I haven't officially played Majora's Mask now in easily 10 years. Though I can't wait to dive back into it within a year. So Tattle. So Tattle's the next sidekick character.
Yeah.
And honestly, narratively, it kind of ends there. She's just a carbon copy of I almost said Siri of Navi. She's a carbon copy of Navi. And they don't really, with the exception of trying to go get her brother back, there's not too much along the way that's different than Navi. There's a little bit of, should we go check that out? Should we go check that out? That's about it.
Yeah, from what I've read and seen, it seems like people are a little less annoyed by Tattle. I think because she doesn't do the, hey, listen, blah, blah, blah. From what I remember, it's more like bell noises or sound
You're absolutely right. She
effects.
dings.
So,
I forgot about that.
And I believe that probably has something to do with people's reception of Navi and the constant yelling. So they were probably like, yeah, maybe we should just do a sound effect.
I totally forgot about that. I absolutely remember now. It just goes king, king.
Yeah. And she's kind of, again, from what I've read and a little bit I remember, because again, I've played the beginning of this game.
That's true.
She's a little more like, she's not as nice as Navi is. She's just kind of like straightforward and a little more sassy, and eventually starts to respect Link, which is comes up again in a later game, a little sassier at first, and then learns that Link is a nice guy.
Well, Tattle joins up with Link reluctantly. She only does it because she thinks Link will help her save her brother. She doesn't really, whereas Navi was assigned to Link.
Yes.
Her destiny was with Link, assigned to her from the great Deku tree. Tattle, I have Tail in my notes, so I keep switching the name because I got it wrong when I was putting my notes together. Tattle is, she's reluctantly there, and then they do befriend each other as the game progresses. It's true.
Yeah, but again,
so much so that if I remember towards the end, Tail has kind of been corrupted a bit, and Tattle and Link are almost closer than Tattle and Tail are.
Yep,
by the end.
That's what I read.
Oh, cool.
I'm assuming that's correct.
Neat.
But yeah, like you said, pretty much the same as Navi in terms of the function and the narrative. That there's not too much going on.
So in release order, then we have a little kind of honorable mention. We have the Meiku trees from the Oracle series. You just looked up in a weird way.
Where does Wind Waker come in?
next in my notes.
Okay.
Is Wind Waker before Oracle?
I have no idea. So I just want to make sure we hit that one.
Oh, we're going to probably go to break and then we'll start with Wind Waker.
Cool.
I think.
All right.
Because that's a good thread there. That's going to be Wind Waker, Twilight. That's going to be a good thread after the break.
Yep, I think you're right. Because, the Oracle. So this is where, sorry, what was the one that you mentioned for this one?
Meiku Tree.
Okay.
This is very much an honorable mention because there is not a sidekick character in the Oracle series. More faces.
Would you consider our good friend Ricky and his other animal pals sidekicks? No,
I would not. I mean, maybe they fit into this Epona thing, but I actually really more consider them items. I think there might, maybe in the instruction manual they'd be called sidekicks, but the truth is, I think from a game design point of view, they're items/mounts.
Gotcha.
I don't mean to be nitpicky about it, but they don't have
Don't hurt their feelings.
They don't have any larger effect on the narrative. They don't really care about the larger narrative. You just kind of call them in. You know what I mean?
Okay, sure.
They're Yoshi's. Even Yoshi's more connected to his storyline than these characters are.
Gotcha. There's no emotional impact of these characters.
Correct.
Whereas Epona definitely has more emotional connection,
agree.
I think. Okay, gotcha.
And if we're going with the structural sidekick, the narrator, the host, it's the Meiku Tree. And it's really wedged into both of these games, I'll admit. Basically, the Meiku Tree just kind of telepathically talks to Link throughout the game. Of oh, you beat that temple. Now try over here. It's that.
So similar to the earlier games where it's the tiles on the wall or the random telepathic messages. Sorry, my cat is currently sneaking behind the curtains behind Dave. I don't know what this is going to
He's going to jump on me.
And maybe.
He has a plan.
If we experience an interruption, it's because my cat has pounced.
I'm getting a little nervous. So I think maybe we go to break and come back with Wind Waker. Are you feeling good about that?
Sounds good to me, and Milo agrees.
All right, cool. I'll see you in a minute.
Okay, bye.
Hey, I'm Max Olmstead.
And I'm Jordan Johnson.
And we're here to talk about the Top Hat Balloon Show.
Yeah, it's a sketch comedy series. Each episode is a wacky new thing that will just fill your heart with joy.
Comes out every week.
Listen to it.
Weekly.
Yeah. Go watch. Go watch a thing.
You can subscribe to the Top Hat Balloon Show on iTunes or YouTube, or visit its website at tophatballoonshow.com.
Hey, everybody, we're back. This is another Zelda podcast, and I think I just surprised Kate with coming back into the show here because she's
back in
laughing.
the show mode.
She's silently laughing over there.
Silently, podcastingly laughing.
So we already know what we're doing here. We're going to be talking about Wind Waker, and this is where I modified my notes a little bit because I realized in Wind Waker, and maybe you see where I'm going with this.
Oh, no.
The Red Lion is the sidekick from a component, is Navi and Epona.
Yeah. Because you're using it to travel. And
it's your mount. It's your travel. It's your vehicle. And the Red Lion tells you, we should go here. We should do that. What do you think about this?
So did you not have him originally?
I didn't even have Wind Waker in this list.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I definitely had him, for sure.
Oh, easily. He's easily a sidekick. I just missed it because I was thinking, what's the character that walks along with Link or something? It's not. Because you're not always with the Red Lion. That's what makes him part Epona.
He can still speak to you telepathically through that necklace.
Oh, you're right.
So that brings in the component of the older games with the telepathic kind of messages. He doesn't have to be physically with you all the time.
Interesting, you're right.
And then when he is, he's definitely useful in more than one way. He can give you advice. You can ask him what to do. You can talk to him. I definitely got to points in that game where I'm like, okay, I forget what I'm doing, or I just turn the game back on, or where am I? And I talk to him and he's like, oh yes, you have to go do this. And I'm like, oh, okay, thank you.
That's the whole point. That's why these sidekick characters exist.
Yeah.
They're a way to put in a manual inside the game.
So I saw him less as a sidekick and more as like my dad, like my game dad.
You definitely made emotional choices with these sidekicks, I feel.
I mean, because he's spoiler alert, the king.
Yeah.
In boat form. So he's kind of like fatherly and kind.
Sure, I agree.
There's no sass there. He can communicate in the ancient language with other creatures.
That's
so
cool.
He's your translator, which is really cool. He's useful. He's functional. Not annoying at all, in my opinion. I think he's a really important part of that game, and I like his assistance.
I do too. When you were talking about Epona as a sidekick character, and I was kind of thinking like, well, I think, as I said, Epona's maybe not structurally a sidekick, but I think we could consider her one. I immediately jumped to Skyward Sword and I thought about the Loftwings and how the Loftwings are Epona in that game. And they definitely aren't your sidekick character in Skyward. And then I rewound my thoughts, I guess you could say, is a weird way of saying it, to Wind Waker. And that's when I realized, Red Lion is the Epona function and the Navi function in one character.
All wrapped into
in
one.
Wind Waker.
Yeah. I think, we've talked about Wind Waker. We had a review episode. Go check it out if you haven't already. But
she's getting so good at this.
I think
gosh,
our
sorry.
general opinion of it is, a fine game. Definitely the first half is better than the second. But I think the King of Red Lions part of that game is done really, really well.
Ooh, tell me about it.
I mean, just
like the Red Lion relationship.
Just like
and
we
stuff?
were talking about how it's so useful. It's used constantly throughout the game. It never takes away from the game to me. So I think
agree.
that's one component of the game that's done really well. The constantly traveling. If you're constantly traveling, at least you have this like cool, functional, friendly person that you're traveling with.
Yeah. And honestly, with Wind Waker, they could have had it be another fairy that floats along with Link, and then he gets onto the boat and it travels together. But I think it was a nice twist to give the boat that sentience and give it a way to talk.
And the knowledge of, the old languages and the old places, and he's giving Link a kind of history lesson at the same time. So yeah, I like that character a lot.
So even though it feels like we're going to be talking about Midna from Twilight Princess next, technically in release order, it's Eslo and Minish Cap.
Indeed.
We've talked a lot about Eslo in our Minish Cap episode in season 1.
Go check it out if you haven't listened to it.
But Eslo is definitely not your mount or your transportation. In fact, the 2D games usually don't really do that. They usually don't have a actual like vehicle that you get in.
Yeah, the land is not really big enough to allow for that, so they just kind of
Correct.
warp you places
Yeah.
instead.
I agree. Especially all of the 2D games or the early ones still did that screen by screen sliding thing. So if a horse ran fast, I don't know if that would really help much anyway.
Right.
So Eslo, as a character, he's much more. He's Midna-esque, even though we're about to talk to her. He literally sits on top of Link, as Midna does. He is integral to the narrative. In many ways, you're helping him solve his story, like Midna. And we've had some thoughts about Eslo. It's intuitively obvious that he's functioning as a Navi character in that he's saying, let's go here now. Hey, we were about to do this.
That is super useful. That's probably my favorite thing about him.
Yeah.
One of the few things that I thought were positive about his character.
Eslo, yeah.
Yeah, which I always thought that was really nice when I turned on that game and he's like, oh, don't forget, like right away. You don't even have to ask him. He's like,
Right.
hey, don't forget, we have to go here. And the first time that happened, I was like, oh, that's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I really didn't remember. No, would have been wandering around lost.
And we discussed how in a handheld game or a mobile game or however you want to think about it, having that character to remind you, because you're turning a handheld game on and off with much more frequency, presumably.
Right.
Than a console game where you're doing longer play sessions. And so a character like that to remind you, which is oddly, this is the first time that a genuine sidekick character exists in a handheld Zelda game. Because before that it was the Oracle games, and before that it was a Link's Awakening. This is the first time we actually get a quote-unquote Navi character, and I thought it was super helpful.
Helpful, annoying.
Well,
So
his
much like Navi, maybe.
his characterization might have been a bit annoying. Yeah, actually, a bit like Navi.
Yeah.
Like story-wise, we love Navi because of what it means. She's been assigned to Link, but it is true that aesthetically, that sometimes is a bit much.
She's been on lists. I didn't mention this back when we were discussing her, but she's been on lists of like most annoying video game characters, which I don't hate her that much. I like her, but I get why it was grating to people after a while. But Eslo, I think, is more annoying just because the sound effects to me are less pleasant. It's
Yes,
like
I agree.
"Wah!" The squawking
Yeah, I agree.
that I did not like as much. He's meant to be a funny element to the game, and yeah, he's funny sometimes.
He definitely
he's
adds
scared
some-
of everything.
Definitely adds some flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe even
His-
more flavor than Navi adds.
Oh yeah, he has more of a personality for sure. It's just not, it's that I don't necessarily enjoy that personality. that
Fair
much.
enough. I wonder if in some ways we're kind of not supposed to. There's a bit of, again, reluctancy to even help this guy in the beginning. He puts himself on your head. He enlists you in many ways. I'm just now realizing to help him.
Because he was this powerful person when he was a person, before he was turned into a hat, which is still an odd
Because
choice.
reasons. Reasons.
So he's powerful and feels that authority and feels like, okay, you come with me, help me out.
I'm starting to recall an animation of Link even trying to get the hat off, and he can't.
Yeah.
When Eslo first attaches himself to Link.
Why do you think there's like a bird-ish design to him? Or do you think that's
I think
just our
it's aesthetic.
brain?
No, I think it is supposed to look like a bird. He certainly sounds like a bird.
Yeah.
It feels
No,
like
that's
an
true.
aesthetic. It feels like an artist somewhere, with all due respect, looked at Link's pointy green hat
And saw
and
a
said,
bird.
"Well, what if we stand that thing up and put a beak on it?"
It's like a Rorschach test
Mm-hmm.
that just worked out to be bird.
I kind of agree. I think it looks, when Eslo is on Link, it still looks enough like his normal triangle hat,
True.
but also looks enough like this new thing, so it means Link isn't unrecognizable in the artwork, on the box art. People can still look at it and they go, "That is Link. What's that interesting thing on top?" From a marketing point of view, like
Interesting.
I think it was chosen
Strategically.
not creatively all the way or something. I don't know. You never know.
Gotcha. That's about all I had
Yeah,
to say
no,
about
me too.
Eslo.
Yeah, I just wanted to. Yeah, I
It
think
is
the big
what it
thing to
is.
point out about Eslo, it's the first time that we get a console style help system in
Yes.
a sidekick in a handheld game.
And how handy that it's attached to Link. It's not
Yeah.
a separate little thing that has to float along
agree.
beside him or anything.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so of course that brings us to Midna in Twilight Princess.
My home girl.
Yes. Oh, this was, I didn't even get a chance to say in the beginning, this is a listener submitted idea. And that listener is Alyssa from work. Do you remember Alyssa?
Oh.
I spoke about her, I don't know, in our season finale or something like
Yeah.
that. You and I, Kate, have planned out many episodes this season. We know many of the things we're talking about, and we're very excited about that. But for this first 3, we were like, what should our third one be? What should our third one be? And on a whim, I was passing Alyssa from work in the hallway, and I said, "Alyssa, we need a topic. Go." And she said, "Oh, I think Sidekicks would be cool." And I was like, "I love it."
Perfect. I mean, that is.
And then I asked you, I think I texted you from my watch, and I was like, "What do you think about Sidekicks?"
Yeah, and
just
I was
seconds
like,
later.
that sounds good because that's super easy to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could just, I didn't even really have to take notes for this one. I did because I always do because I'm
Yeah.
a crazy person.
There's
but
always pages of notes. I
There's
love
always
it.
pages. But you don't even need to just because they're prevalent in most games.
Yep.
So it's just a common theme, really.
The reason I thought
and
about
fun.
this is Alyssa, and then a few days later, then I said, "Hey, we're going to record, tomorrow or whatever. Who's your favorite sidekick?" And she actually said Navi, no doubt, all the way.
I could see that.
Yep.
Again, nostalgia factor, I think, for some people. Like, I love Navi too. Epona's my kind of
Epona.
favorite.
Yeah.
Because I thought that was the coolest element of Ocarina of Time, and
Yeah.
she's my partner, and then Twilight Princess again, blah blah blah. So I get it. The nostalgia.
It's
has
touchy because I
something to do with
dig the opponent character, and in my category, like she's not that sidekick thing, but I would think that I would prefer opponent over Navi as well if we're including that as our verticals. And then I asked my friend Bria. I asked her. I said, "Hey, what's your favorite sidekick?" She actually said Midna,
it. Midna is a real close
which we are about to talk about.
second. Yeah. Midna is definitely the closest one in terms of personality to myself.
I think-
she's sarcastic and
Oh.
sassy, so I always liked her for that. I think she has the most personality of any of the sidekicks, for sure. She has personality in
Yeah.
spades.
Most personality. She's the most realized character. She's a fully fleshed out character in the narrative, way
Yes.
more than even Eslo.
More than Zelda
Yeah, absolutely.
in that game.
As you pointed out last season, it's called Twilight Princess, and that's about Midna.
Right.
That game is about Midna. She is the Twilight Princess.
Which is the first time they have done something like that. And I think it was really effectively done, too. Just to switch it up a little bit.
Yeah. Just as a little bit to go outside of the Zelda universe a little bit, between Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, a game called Star Fox Adventures came out. Or maybe it was around the time of Wind Waker. But anyway, that game was a Zelda-like. We will definitely play it and review it at some point. It was made by Rare, the guys who made Banjo-Kazooie and stuff like that. A game
Oh,
you
sure.
really
And
like.
Donkey Kong.
And Donkey Kong, indeed. It was their final game they made for the GameCube, and it was their final game that I think they really made for Nintendo even,
Okay.
before Microsoft bought them out, and then they admittedly kind of lost their way a little bit. That game had a Navi character, and it was a fully realized baby Triceratops that ran along next to Star Fox.
Okay.
And that character, you could feed him, and there was a little bit of Tamagotchi going on there, but this character existed on, like Navi is handy because she floats, so you don't have to map her to the ground. Whereas King Tricky, I think his name was, or something like that, or Prince Tricky, I don't even really fully remember his name. He was an AI character that had to walk on the ground and do things.
Okay.
And that predated Midna just a little bit. And so I feel like there is in video game culture, there is a progression of sidekicks. We get Prince Tricky, and then we get Midna, and then we get a game called Beyond Good and Evil, where there's this pig character called Paige, who's a full-on, almost co-op style Navi like host, which is very cool.
Mentioned that game.
You
before.
will love Beyond Good and Evil,
Yeah,
I think.
I think we've talked about that.
I
one
think
a
you
little
will love it, and I think it might be our first like Zelda like that we review.
bit. Cool.
So then, then after Midna, then we take a huge step back with Fee, but let's keep talking about Midna.
Yeah. What haven't we already said about her in other episodes? Like she's so. I think she's great. I think her personality is great. I think the fact that you use her when you're the Wolf Link to create the kind of force attack field around you, like she's actively helping you with that, and that's like a little bit of strategy as well because you have to make sure your enemies are within that field, and it's kind of a little trickier to use that sometimes. I think when you're Wolf Link, is it you talking to animals, or does she also talk to the animals?
Wolf Link talks to the animals.
Okay.
In fact, I don't know if Midna ever actually acknowledges that.
Okay.
She talks about she kind of does the whole you can talk to the spirits thing.
Oh, that's right. Okay. So she hears them, the spirits. She can transport objects. Obviously, that's a big part of the game as well. And I was reading the description of her, and it said something like, well, it's obvious that she's very powerful, but you don't necessarily see all of her powers because she can, remove his chains with just like a zap of the hand.
You're right. Yeah.
And so she's definitely this like powerful being.
She can turn into bubbles and float through bars and all of that kind of stuff.
Yep. I wish she would come back I think
she could.
Does she appear in like other like Hyrule Warriors or?
Oh, in Hyrule Warriors, I'm not sure. I feel like she must have to, but I
Yeah.
really don't know. I do own Hyrule Warriors now. I mentioned how I bought it like at a used game store, but I did not really go nuts with like the downloadable content or anything. I did
Gotcha.
one thing. I spent $1 on like the Twilight Princess costume for Link, and I think I spent $1 on the Ocarina costume, and I was like, I'm good there.
So, and I was checking on this. So apparently she's in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate as well.
As a playable character?
The
new one that just came out?
Yeah, I want to say so.
Interesting.
Maybe
She might be like an assist trophy or something, but still.
Yeah, I don't know. I have that game. I'm terrible at it. Like I said in another episode, I'm very, very bad at Super Smash Brothers in general because I haven't owned any of the other games, but I really wanted this one.
Yeah.
And it is fun to play, but
Yeah.
I am terrible at it. So I definitely do not
You'll get
have
better.
all the characters by any means. I have like 5 of them
Got it.
so far. I did not know that you don't start off with all of them.
You start off with the kind of the originals, I think.
And I was like, oh no, I have to be good at this.
The last actual Smash Brothers that I played was the one for the Wii. So that's like 2 versions ago. I had a blast with it. I loved it, but I missed out on the Wii U one. And eventually I'll probably get into this Ultimate one. But honestly, these days it's like just finding time a little bit.
I
got
know.
enough Zelda games to play.
I know.
However, so Midna, contextually, in the video game industry, Midna appears at a time when fully realized AI-driven sidekick characters are existing. Prince Tricky, Paige, Midna. Midna is clearly the driving. She kind of kidnaps Link to make him do her bidding. She holds him ransom by not allowing him to turn back into a human, keeping him a dog or a wolf and stuff like that. It's similar to Eslo in that way.
Yeah, and
I
similar
just thought-
to Tattle as well.
Oh my gosh, isn't that interesting?
Because she's just using him as a means to an end, right? Not really.
Yeah.
And then they eventually both warm up to Link as well after he
that's
kind of
true.
proves his heroism and honor.
So what is that? Is that like a carrot on the stick kind of function? I'm sassy. You got to help me. That from a game design point of view, that allows the character to drive forward. So whereas Navi is with Link in Link's perspective, Navi says, maybe we go do that. Whereas a character who knows more than Link does, like Midna, can say, we need to go there. And that actually is maybe a stronger way to drive the narrative. Maybe that's why these kind of anti-hero characters, sidekick characters pop up.
And are more effective, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It'd be interesting. Yeah, because if you have a good person who knows less,
It's not as effective, yeah. It's not as dramatic. It's not as compelling.
I agree.
I love Midna. She's cool. I like her character design. Honestly, both designs too, like the imp form of her and the actual human form or human-esque form. she's awesome. And I like her sound effects too. Like that was never annoying to me, like how, Navi can be annoying or Eslo can be annoying. She was never annoying.
You're
like
right.
I liked her little, it's not gibberish because I think this is like, I'm not sure if it's Japanese or it's a language, but it's like cut up and
Yes.
and scrambled.
It's a little bit of that Banjo-Kazooie thing where it's like,
yeah, but it's still it's actual words. They don't sound like actual words.
right, yes.
So-
There's consonants and vowels and whatnot.
So maybe that's more pleasing.
I agree.
I don't know. To
and when
listen
you
to.
technically call her up, her version of the hey listen,
Mm.
whereas Tattle is just a ding.
Mm.
Her version is that it's just like a tone.
Oh, yeah.
When she comes up as the shadow.
Yeah.
Just,
And it's kind of
that's
a pleasing
the only
tone.
Yeah, it is. It is pleasing. It's not offensive and it's not grating on the ears. And that's when she is the most like a Navi, in that she's literally kind of saying like, what do you want from me?
Mm-hmm.
I can answer things for you.
Right.
But also there's that tone cues you up that you're going into that mode with her.
Mm-hmm.
So other times when she's sitting on Link's back and she's pulling on his ears and stuff like that, she's a fully realized character.
Yeah. Yeah. Love
Cool,
it.
cool, cool. So that brings us to, last but not least here. Oh, I found out it is pronounced Fi.
Oh yeah. Yep. So did you for Phantom Hourglass? I wasn't sure if there was one for that.
Oh, I'm so sorry. There kind of is. There's Celia.
Mm-hmm.
It's another fairy. And Celia just lives on an island. There's really not a larger story to her.
Okay.
The reason there needs to be a fairy in Phantom Hourglass is that when you move Link around, you have to press on the screen and he walks towards where you're pressing.
Okay.
The way that that's driven in game is that when you touch the screen, Celia flies over to where your pen is touching.
Mm-hmm.
So if you could imagine, like in Link's world in Phantom Hourglass, that pen that touches the screen doesn't exist, of course, right?
Right.
But Celia does exist. So in many ways, you actually don't control Link. You could almost imagine that in many ways you're actually controlling Celia and Link goes towards Celia.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So the same way that Navi would Z-target on things in Ocarina, and that was a function of the gameplay, Celia functions as gameplay, but in a different way.
So not really a sidekick.
She talks a little bit. You kind of have, there's a sidekick character that kind of goes along with you, borderline Epona. It's I forget his name right now, but he owns a boat and he's a little bit of a scaredy cat. Lineback, yeah, that's it.
That's the name I had written down with a question mark next
He's
to
a
it.
sidekick the way maybe that Epona is.
Okay.
But he's not a mount. But he is your boat. Whoa, it gets weird.
Oh, meta.
He's the source to your boat, so he is your travel.
Mm.
The boat's much bigger in Phantom Hourglass. It's a whole steamship in Phantom Hourglass
Okay.
that you drive around. Linebeck is narratively a sidekick, but technically the function of gameplay sidekick is Celia. That's all I have to say about that.
Okay. So then on to Skyward Sword.
Yeah,
and
there we
Fi.
are.
So she's the spirit of the sword, which is kind of a unique, kind of new
Yeah.
element to bring to the
Mm-hmm.
sidekick. She, where Midna had all the personality, she has like none.
They went full robot with her.
Full 180 from Midna,
Yeah.
robot speaks in statistics. She has a robotic sound effect to her,
Mm-hmm.
which I actually like her sound effects as well. I love her theme, like her theme music.
Oh, when when she's like unlocking things and skates around?
Yeah, the
That is a nice
flute
song.
kind of melody. I love that. Might be one of my favorite Zelda
Ooh, I like
themes
it.
ever. Is hers.
Interesting.
I think it's because it's so opposite what she is. Like she's this robot, but she's also so graceful. It's very.
You bring up an interesting point because when she does unlock, when does she do those? You get to an item and something gets unlocked. It's been a while since I played this one.
Yeah, you have to like kind of infuse your sword with some extra magic.
Yeah.
And so
but
she kind of.
When she does this, she becomes not emotional, but she does have an emotional presence. She becomes like a ballerina. She opens up, she skates around, and it all does she becomes expressive
Yes.
in her movements and then goes back to like AI mode.
Yeah, and the music is just so pretty. So she's kind of multifaceted in that way. Like they did make her super robot, but they also brought this really interesting other side to her.
I didn't mind Fi. It was intuitively obvious that she was like a Navi at Navi's worst. But the thing that really frustrated me about Fi is none of those percentages were real. They were all just scripted.
Right.
it would be really cool if she actually had some. It was a scripted character pretending to be artificial intelligence instead of like actually running a little bit of AI. Wouldn't that be nice? Like actually let her count the enemies in an area and maybe actually give you a slightly different percentage.
She was able to tell you how many times you've beaten an enemy if you like targeted them. So there's a little bit of that. But not what you're saying.
But I'm saying like when she's saying like there's a 98% chance that we'll succeed, you're like, well, that's just a person wrote that into the script.
It's a script, yeah.
That's just saying, yes, you will succeed.
Right. And then she also has her dowsing ability, so that's a little different from other games. So not only can she tell you statistics that may or may not be actually true, but she can tell you about enemies, and she also has this extra dowsing ability, so you can find certain objects.
Yeah, the dowsing, I remember the dowsing reminded me a lot of the item scanning in the Metroid Prime series. Where you find something and then you scan it and then it tells you about it. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure that Nintendo was looking for more reasons to point at the screen with your Wiimote. And I don't actually mean to make fun. I get it. And dowsing could be one of them, you know?
Yeah. I don't have a strong opinion of her either way, I guess. But I like her design aesthetic, too. I like the purple, blue.
Yeah, I thought she looked cool.
Colors, yeah. She kind of looked metallic in a way, or plastic, sort of. So that was really cool. And, you know, she ends up having some kind of emotion because she tells Link that she was able to experience happiness while she helped him. And then she goes back into the sword. And it's cool that she pops up again then later in Breath of the Wild a little bit.
What? Tell me, what?
Well, this is in the DLC, apparently.
Do you know something about the DLC that I don't? Please, I can't wait.
I mean, you don't see her.
Okay.
But her sound effect plays in a cutscene when Zelda is like, when Link gets knocked out, basically, or defeated, and then Zelda is like, what do I do? What do I do? And then she hears Fi's little sound.
No way.
And she's like, oh, the Master Sword is telling me this and that, the other thing. And her power has decreased a little bit because it's been 100 years or however long it's been. But I can still hear her faintly. And
you know, we had a listener last season mention something about the Master Sword in Breath of the Wild making this
and
noise.
I hadn't, until I got the DLC, thanks to you, I didn't know anything about that. And then that's like one of the first things I tried to find because I was like, oh, I really want to see that.
I don't think I found this. Can you tell me, where do you go? Where do you head? Is it Master Sword
I don't remember.
in the Lost Woods?
No, it's not there. It's like you have to, it's like a bonus memory.
Cool.
Yeah.
I don't know if I found that or not. Or maybe I didn't realize, but that is cool.
And I'm actually just realizing now how cool it is that the Master Sword is female.
Oh, I guess so.
That's pretty freaking cool.
Yeah.
Like you have, there's always like a strong female at Link's side, you know, whether it's Zelda or in this case, the Master Sword. And who knows if this means the Master Sword has always been female.
So even with the Red Lion, there's Tetra. Mm-hmm. Maybe not Minish Cap, but that's okay.
Yeah, not always a female character,
but often.
Often.
That is cool.
Yeah,
I love it. This was a cool episode.
Yeah,
I enjoyed this.
Fun.
I wonder. Yeah, and obviously Breath of the Wild no functional sidekick.
Right. Would you consider Groose a sidekick in Skyward Sword?
I don't. I was going along the lines of like game design.
Sure.
Sidekick. You know, periphery characters, narrative sidekick characters.
He's a narrative sidekick for sure.
Yeah, he does help
he's
you.
He's building weapons to help in your quest and whatnot.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he's an honorable mention sidekick.
If we're gonna do narrative, yeah, for sure, honorable mention.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay, the end.
Still none in Breath of the Wild.
No. Nope, we agree on that.
Like you get little spirits talking to you of champions of the past, but that's not really sidekicks.
No, I mean, yeah, and the old man is not a sidekick. He's just an old man.
Yeah, he does function as a sidekick for that first 3 shrines and then pieces out and then lets you do your own thing.
Right.
Cool. Yeah, all right. Well, great, Kate. If people have any other thoughts about anything we said about our sidekicks, they can tweet us at Another Zelda Pod or find us on Instagram at Another Zelda Podcast. You can also go to Facebook and YouTube and find us by searching Another Zelda Podcast or go to our website, anotherzeldapodcast.com, wherein you can find links to our Discord account and just about everything else that we do over there on that website. Kate, if people want to chat with you about any of these things, where can they find you?
You can find me on Instagram at I Only Take Cat Pics, and you can also tag me on Discord if you are on our Discord channel.
Oh, fantastic. Getting so suave over there with the tags.
Technology is definitely my thing. I'm shaking my head. No, it's not.
If people are inclined to find me, I'm actually on Twitter and Instagram and Discord, now that I think about it, as @RaptorPaint, and you're welcome to chat with me about things. Until then, Kate, I'll see you in the next episode.
Wait, I forgot to mention on Discord, I only take cat pics, which I did not mention on our other 2 episodes, so maybe that should go in the show notes. My name on there is Catertot Yay.
Catertot Yay. I love it.
Yes, I guess my Instagram and Discord are not the same, but I should mention that.
That's fine. That's very good.
Okay, the end.
Kate, I'll see you in the next episode.
Okay, bye.